For 2 decades, Henry Sanders carried the unbearable weight of his daughter Clara's disappearance. She had vanished at 16, leaving behind no trace. Though the police closed the case after 2 months, Henry never stopped searching. Every face in a crowd, every unexpected call stirred a flicker of hope. Weekends were spent in the attic or basement, sifting through old boxes filled with memories. Dust-covered photos, school papers, and keepsakes formed a quiet trail of the past. Clara's laughter lingered in his mind, driving him to keep going. Ellen, his wife, watched with quiet resignation. She had long accepted the silence, but Henry's determination never wavered. He treated every scrap of paper as a possible clue. Their golden retriever Max was his constant companion during these searches, always sniffing boxes and following close behind. Henry spoke to him often, more than to anyone else, finding comfort in the dog's presence.
But before we start, smash the like button, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you never miss out on our upcoming stories.
One Saturday, Henry climbed into the attic, sunlight leaking through the wooden slats. He moved slowly, scanning the cluttered space. In a far corner, under layers of dust, he found an old high school yearbook. Flipping it open absent-mindedly, his eyes froze on a photo that stopped him cold. Something about the image told him Clara hadn't vanished at all. Henry almost set the yearbook aside but felt a tug of curiosity and opened it. A soft crack from the spine released the scent of old paper, carrying him back 2 decades. Each page he turned revealed moments frozen in time, smiling teens at school dances, parents laughing at fundraiser cookouts, crowded hallways buzzing with life. These weren't just photos. They were pieces of a world Clara had once moved through. As he flipped through, the images stirred a quiet ache. He recognized names and faces Clara had mentioned over dinner, kids from study groups, her lab partner, the girl she once called her best friend. Their youthful expressions stared back at him, untouched by time or tragedy. Then, Clara's photo appeared. He paused. His thumb brushed over her image, a familiar glimmer in her eyes making his breath catch. For a moment, everything else faded. Her dreams of becoming a veterinarian, her excitement about college, the animated conversations they once shared in the kitchen. It all came rushing back. The weight of those lost years pressed in, but something about the photo wouldn't let him move on. The edges of the print looked strange, fainter than the others, slightly misaligned, as if it had been added later or reprinted quickly. The background behind her didn't quite match the lighting of the page. A chill crept up his spine. He flipped back a few pages, then forward, comparing photos. Hers was the only one that looked tampered with. A strange energy filled the air. His instincts stirred, the same ones that had kept him searching all these years. Something wasn't right. There was more to this picture than just a memory. Henry chuckled, shaking his head. The faded photo seemed like nothing more than a poorly printed image. He flipped the page, trying to dismiss it, but the oddity lingered in his mind. Just then, his phone buzzed. Mike's name lit up the screen. The familiar voice on the other end brought a brief wave of comfort. They caught up, swapping memories of lake weekends and their kids playing without a care in the world. The warmth of shared history wrapped around Henry like a well-worn blanket, momentarily easing the ache. After the call, he sat in silence, the echo of friendship grounding him. He picked the yearbook back up, the sense of something unresolved still clinging to him. The room was quiet. Max stretched out beside him, the steady tick of the clock, the only sound. As he turned the pages, Henry's thoughts buzzed with questions, each one a painful reminder of Clara's absence. That night, sleep refused to come. Every time he closed his eyes, the mystery pulled him deeper into restless tossing. Max snored softly at the foot of the bed, a quiet comfort in the midst of Henry's unease. His thoughts drifted to Clara's old friends, faces from the yearbook and from memory, now grown and living their own lives. He wondered if they held answers he'd never thought to ask. By morning, with pale light creeping through the curtains, Henry reached for the yearbook again. He began scribbling down names, a plan slowly forming. For the first time in years, he felt a sense of purpose. Maybe someone remembered something, maybe the truth had just been waiting to be uncovered. Over breakfast, Helen watched Henry quietly. She could see the weight he carried, familiar, unspoken, and ever-present. She didn't press him, offering a gentle, "More coffee?" Instead, he nodded, grateful for her quiet support. As sunlight poured through the curtains, Henry stretched, his resolve firming. He gathered the yearbook and notes, ready to chase the flicker of hope that had sparked the night before. Max padded after him, sensing the shift in energy. Driving familiar roads, Henry headed toward the high school, hoping someone there might remember something, anything. The building looked much the same, echoes of the past still clinging to its halls. Inside, he made his way to the front office and was relieved to find Miss Thompson, older now but still lively. They exchanged warm greetings, and while she was happy to talk about Clara, her memories offered no new leads. Still, it was a start. "Smart girl," Miss Thompson said fondly, recalling Clara's bright spirit. But her memories offered no new clues, only a bittersweet reminder of what had been lost. Clara's laughter, her friendships, her dreams, they lingered in the past, fading yet precious. Henry thanked her quietly, hiding his disappointment. Her genuine concern was a small comfort, but the visit left him with more questions than answered. Outside, the sun warmed his face, but his thoughts remained heavy. It felt like another dead end. Max walked beside him, steady and loyal. On his way downtown, Henry passed a familiar diner, one Clara had loved. He decided to stop for coffee. Inside, the place was just as he remembered. From a nearby booth, conversation drifted over, and he recognized a few familiar faces from Clara's time. A flicker of hope stirred again. Maybe someone here still remembered something. Joe welcomed Henry with a nod, and soon the table filled with stories of school days. Laughter and nostalgia blended with a comforting scent of diner food. Clara's name surfaced often, her memory warm and vivid in every recollection. The group spoke of her spark, her energy, the way she brought light into a room. Each shared memory seemed to paint her in brighter hues, filling Henry with both pride and a deep ache. These fragments of the past renewed his sense of purpose. Then Sarah, an old classmate, thoughtful and hesitant, mentioned something unusual. A vague memory of Clara speaking with someone unfamiliar back then. The room quieted slightly as she tried to recall more, her expression clouded with the effort. Henry listened closely, every detail noted and scribbled down on a scrap of paper. The mention of a stranger stirred something in him, a possible lead buried in the shadows of memory. Back at home, Henry hesitated only briefly before seeking out his neighbor, David. He laid out the yearbook and his findings, sharing the pieces he'd gathered so far. David took it all in with focused concern, offering a quiet nod of support. Henry felt a small but vital confirmation. He wasn't chasing ghosts, something was there. The conversation reignited Henry's resolve. With David's support, the weight of the search felt a little lighter. Together, they spread out old photos and newspapers, tracing fragments of the past, snapshots of town events, familiar faces, and moments long forgotten. Sunlight streamed in as they combed through the pieces, nostalgia mixing with purpose. Max lay nearby, calm and attentive, as if sensing the importance of the moment. David suggested involving the police. The idea felt daunting after so many years, but the logic was clear, there was nothing to lose. Henry hesitated, then agreed. It was time to revisit the case officially. With David by his side, Henry felt his determination solidify. With Max by his side, he entered the police station, memories of past visits pressing in, moments of hope followed by disappointment. He approached the counter, heart pounding, clutching his notes. Officer Rogers recognized him immediately and greeted him with warmth and empathy. She listened attentively as Henry explained his renewed search, then pulled out Clara's old file, its edges worn with time. Together, they reviewed the record. Nothing indicated Clara had left willingly. Both knew her nature, loving, rooted, full of plans. The file, though thorough, offered no answers, only silence. Still, Officer Rogers promised to keep an eye out and reach out if anything new emerged. Henry left the station with a mix of hope and frustration, but took comfort in her genuine support. It's not over yet, Henry thought as he left the station, Max trotting beside him. Still, his mind churned with unanswered questions. The drive home was quiet, the road familiar yet heavy with thought. Back at the dining table, Henry opened the yearbook again, pages worn from repeated searching. Max curled up nearby, ever faithful. As Clara's photo appeared, something caught his eye. The background didn't match the others. Leaning in, he studied the image more closely. It looked altered, not simply a poor print. A flicker of hope stirred. The photo felt intentional, as if hiding something. Tapping the page, Henry sensed the shift. This could be the clue he'd been waiting for. His thoughts turned to Mr. Stevens, Clara's old art teacher, a man known for noticing details others missed. As they explored possible explanations, Mr. Stevens shared memories of Clara's love for photography and her fascination with hidden meanings. She had been curious, always asking questions others overlooked. He recalled her often staying late at school, engaged in deep conversations about art and symbolism with a small, tight-knit group of students. Each detail added depth to Clara's world, revealing new layers Henry hadn't known. Realizing these students might hold missing pieces, Henry asked who they were. Tracking them down was the next step. Henry left the studio with renewed purpose. The photo, Clara's interests, and her hidden circle were beginning to form a clearer picture. Max trotted beside him as Henry planned his next move, ready to follow the trail wherever it led. Henry decided it was time to see Sarah again, hoping she might recall more. They arranged to meet the next day, and a glimmer of hope stirred in his chest. At a quiet cafe, Henry listened as Sarah opened up. She remembered Clara confiding late at night, sharing fears she had kept hidden from others. Clara had felt like someone was watching her, pursuing her, and it left a lasting impression. Sarah admitted she once dismissed it as teenage anxiety, but now, looking back, she wasn't so sure. Henry felt the weight of her words, realizing Clara's fears might have been real warnings, not imagined stress. They spoke about moments when Clara acted strangely, uneasy around certain adults. Sarah couldn't identify them, but the pattern was clear. Clara had been on edge. As Henry walked away from the cafe, Max, trotting beside him, he felt a renewed sense of direction. Clara's fears were no longer just whispers of the past, they were clues, and they were finally starting to make sense. Among the journal's pages, Clara's emotions unfolded: joy, fear, hope, but the truth about her disappearance remained elusive. Henry flipped through her words again, searching for something he might have missed. Memories of school life and friendships echoed through the lines, yet the deeper mystery stayed hidden. Then, a passage caught his attention. Clara mentioned meeting someone who promised safety and escape. The words were vague, but they hinted at something significant. Henry's thoughts turned darker. Could someone in authority have been involved? Maybe Clara hadn't run away but had been helped to disappear. The possibility sent a chill through him, yet it made more and more sense. Surrounded by notes, Henry carefully traced key phrases, circling anything that stood out. He felt close, closer than ever, but uncertain of what he might find next. Picking up the phone, he called Mark, one of Clara's closest friends, hoping for clarity. They met at a small cafe. Mark, visibly nervous, hesitated before revealing something Henry hadn't expected. Clara once mentioned that authorities had approached her about protection. The weight of his words settled heavily between them. This could be the missing piece Henry had been searching for. Protection? The word echoed in his mind. Mark admitted Clara hadn't shared much, just fragments, but he remembered her fear and certainty. Henry took notes, every vague detail feeling vital. Mark's sincerity gave weight to the conversation, even if specifics remained scarce. Then, Mark mentioned he might still have contact info from that time. Henry felt a surge of hope. Grateful, Henry promised to stay in touch, their shared resolve clear. As he walked home, determination burned stronger than ever. He was closer now, each conversation a step toward the truth. With renewed purpose, Henry contacted the local police. No more hesitations. He requested a meeting about Clara, his voice steady and firm. The detective who met with him listened carefully, then delivered the revelation Henry never expected. Clara had been placed in a witness protection program. Relief, disbelief, and emotion flooded him all at once. After years of silence and questions, the truth was finally within reach. The revelation changed everything. Clara hadn't vanished by choice, but for survival. The protection had been necessary, shielding her from a threat Henry had never known. Sitting in his car, he let the truth sink in. She hadn't run away, she'd been hidden. A tear slipped down his cheek as the weight he'd carried for years began to lift. His relentless search now felt justified, his hope never misplaced. Then, just as he began to process it all, his phone rang. The number was unfamiliar, yet something told him to answer. Henry Sanders? A voice asked, calm, familiar. His pulse quickened. He listened carefully, feeling the stir of possibility. The past wasn't finished revealing itself.
Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe, and ring the notification bell so you never miss another unbelievable tale like this one.